Bora lá, dia 24, 25, não sei, alguma coisa. Só bora fazer que agora é... Hoje é cedo, hoje é 23 horas. Geralmente eu faço mais de meia-noite morrendo, né? Mas eu tô aqui desde as 6h30, enrolando, processando um vídeo de Pokémon. Vendo aqui se eu gravo umas coisas. Então bora só fazer logo. Terminei de almoçar ali, comer ali. Então bora, só. E cara, já me jogar no chão, ó. Eu comecei a pensar em me jogar no chão, mas eu tenho que fazer o da barra primeiro, porque no chão, você tá ligado? Vai ser o último, né? Eu tenho que fazer até a falha do chão. Da barra não tem como fazer, porque na barra eu já tô falhando no 6 normal. Então bora. Na barra vai ser 6 como sempre, eu tô tentando conseguir fazer com qualquer consistência. E no chão, eu acho que eu tava botar 12, né? Eu tava fazendo 10, mas foi tão fácil que eu acho que eu vou fazer 12 hoje, o máximo. Eu vou fazer 10 porque eu tô de Boreste. Mas a barra vai ser 6.
Economically, Canada already has a free trade agreement with the EU, and geographically, it isn't as distant as it seems. Canada shares a sea border with the French territory off Newfoundland, and a land connection through Greenland, an EU-associated territory. Canada is also a European-style social democracy, with a well-developed welfare state, and like the US, is an observer of the Council of Europe. As an observer, it can participate in discussions and is considered to align with the Council's pro-democracy and pro-human rights values, which underpin Article 49 of the treaty. Canada and the US Mexico and the Holy See and Israel also all hold observer status. Theoretically meaning,
E agora espero 3 minutos pra me recuperar disso.
in Israel's case, which
NA.
is just a 40-minute flight from Cyprus, there have even been informal discussions about potential EU membership. While this is hard to imagine today, given Israel's actions in Gaza and European opinion on that issue, advocates have in the past argued that Israel's EU membership could reduce the country's isolation and strengthen its security, while some European voices have seen it as a possible path towards greater stability in the Middle East. Finally, there are a handful of other overseas countries and territories, like New Caledonia and Greenland, which used to be part of the EC before withdrawing, which have a special relationship with specific EU member states. So it's not far-fetched to suggest that they too could join the EU. Of course, none of this means that any of these countries will join the EU, or that it's likely to happen anytime soon. Enlargement is a complex and divisive issue. The EU already struggles to reach consensus, since most major decisions require unanimity among its 27 members. Adding more would only make that harder, while complicating issues like migration, funding, and governance. So while the EU probably won't be stretching across the oceans anytime soon, the question of where Europe ends and what it stands for remains open. As the European Commission said in 1991, it is neither possible nor opportune to establish now the frontiers of the European Union, whose contours will be shaped over many years to come. If you're interested in major news events like this, you'll have certainly been paying attention to what's been happening in the Middle East recently, with the whole region seemingly in a state of flux.
Tech news never stops. It's in perpetual motion, like beer in a boil's flask, which is a perpetual motion setup that only works with beer. Make sense? Now, let's get a little tipsy. Microsoft is finally fixing a long-standing Windows bug that caused the update and shut down option to instead restart your PC and leave it on. Kind of the opposite of what I wanted. The bug has been around pretty much since Windows 10 launched in 2015, and now, 10 years later, the fix is now available for the successor to Windows 10, Windows 11. Just about 3 weeks
10 anos
after
depois,
Microsoft
era um
cut
bug e
off
consegui
Windows 10
desligar o
access
bagulho.
to feature updates, which kind of
É o
confirms
Windows.
for me that this was all in the line of prank. But I guess I won't look a gift horse in the mouth, and I'll just be grateful that the October 2025 optional patch addresses this issue so my machine can update and shut down properly at last. Rest well, sweet prince. Now that they've fixed this, Microsoft can move on to their next problem. The fact that they have more AI hardware than they know what to do with. In an interview alongside OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, Microsoft's Satya Nadella revealed that they actually don't have enough electricity to power their Scrooge McDuck-sized horde of GPUs. I guess that's why Microsoft has secured export licenses from the US government to ship NVIDIA AI chips that they have.
Sem que já no primeiro, e só de 10, o pai tá morto demais hoje.
AI GPU market is so hot, tech companies
Pai, pra não tá bom hoje não.
fiends who camp out at Walmart
Tô saudável, mas
Hard restart. It's a game. I mean,
vai dar sem motivação, vai estar com fraqueza.
AMD is continuing their attempt at cleaning up a mess of their own making by announcing that they will, in fact, provide drivers for RX 5000 and RX 6000 series graphics cards that do include game optimizations for the foreseeable future. As we mentioned on Friday, it looked like AMD was withholding those updates for RDNA 1 and 2 GPUs, which understandably stirred up a lot of backlash. And while AMD confirmed that the older cards will be on a separate driver branch than the latest hardware, they will also get bug fixes and security patches, in addition to game optimization, leaving everything pretty much how it was when this whole kerfuffle started. But we all had fun, didn't we? Speaking of the latest hardware, AMD confirmed that its next-gen consumer CPUs built on the Zen 6 architecture will carry the codename Ryzen Medusa. Don't look at it! Just put it in your computer. No eye contact. The launch of these chips is planned for the first half of 2027. AMD is using the age-old technique of just knocking us off balance with a barrage of conflicting news. AMD, what are you doing with your damn GPU driver? Whoa, is that a new CPU? Google has removed its lightweight Gemma model from the company's AI Studio developer suite after it allegedly fabricated a news story about U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn being accused of sexual assault. Senator Blackburn wrote an angry letter to Google after reportedly seeing screenshots of the false news story posted online by developers asking Gemma about it in a closed developer environment. We haven't seen the screenshots themselves anywhere. She just said that she saw this online. In response, Google clarified that Gemma wasn't a public chatbot, but an experimental model only available to developers through AI Studio and Vertex AI. It's not integrated into any public-facing services like the Gemini Assistant or Google AI Mode. Nevertheless, the tech giant quickly apologized and said it's tightening safeguards to prevent these attacks. And that's all it took. The hallucinations will be gone now. They just needed a sternly worded letter from a boomer Karen. Still, while one AI model was being grounded for bad behavior, another is about to get way more personal. Google executive Ravi Stein says the company's upcoming AI mode will know everything about you. Plans to give your AI companion access
Fiz 6, acho que eu aconteci menos.
because nothing says trust
Consciente da fraqueza que eu tô hoje, eu fui no roubo já.
But do you want to know who you can really trust with your data? Our sponsor, Delete, your personal data deletion specialist, which is a useful thing to have, since data brokers already have your info, unless you've avoided using the internet. Check out Delete Me today. If energy can't be created or destroyed, then how did these quick bits pop into existence from nowhere? Apple has finally launched its web version of the App Store, letting users browse, search, and even remotely install apps to their iPhones and iPads directly from a desktop browser. The new interface looks almost identical to the App Store app on Apple devices, offering a vast upgrade over the previous web-based App Store interface, which only consisted of individual listings for apps, but lacked other features like a Discover page or app management. The update allows weirdo PC users like me to have a peek into what life is like inside Apple's mysterious walled garden. Do they all sit in artisanal cafes dressed like Tim Cook to write their screenplays? I can't wait to find out. Proofpoint researchers say hackers are teaming up with organized crime rings to steal cargo by breaching trucking and logistics systems. By using stolen credentials and remote access tools, attackers are managing to hijack fleet dashboards, reroute shipments, and eventually steal entire shipping containers before anybody notices. The whole thing has a very Kim Possible man in the chair vibe. Shigo, I mean. The attacks blur the line between cybercrime and Grand Theft Auto, literally, with hackers using fake phishing emails and pickup orders, getting couriers to do almost all of the work for them. It's a lot like Michael Mann's 1981 masterpiece, Thief, but there are way more computers, and not nearly enough Willie Nelson, unless he's also involved. No! Snapmaker's U1 3D printer is now officially on sale after becoming one of the most successful Kickstarters in history, pulling in 20 million USD in pre-orders. The hype is well deserved, largely thanks to its standout feature, the use of 4 independent extruders. Now, this design allows users to print in multiple colors by changing the actual tool head, reducing wasted plastic and time. Wow. Combined with pricing starting at a very accessible $850, depending on your situation, it's easy to see why this launch has been massive. It's basically the 3D printing equivalent of a 4-barrel carburetor, only this one costs less to fill up. A comparison I understand, SpaceX is teaming up with a startup named Beskar. I think it's a play on Beskar, like from Star Wars, but it's an X, Beskar, I don't know, to mount semiconductor manufacturing modules on Falcon 9 booster rockets, hoping the vacuum of space improves chip production. These fab ships will ride up, use the vacuum of space for ultra-clean fabrication, hoping the cosmic rays aren't an issue, and return with the booster in about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, NVIDIA just launched its powerhouse H100 GPU into orbit via a star cloud satellite to test running full-blown AI data centers in space instead of Earth. These billionaire corpo suits are so desperate not to bring manufacturing back to the good old US of A that they'll go anywhere, even the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism, space! Even I was confused by that sentence. And Reflect Orbital, a California startup, plans to launch thousands of giant mirrors into space, speaking of, to beam sunlight on demand onto Earth after it gets dark. Astronomers and environmental experts are warning this could be catastrophic for night sky observations, disrupt wildlife and human sleep cycles, and fundamentally change how we experience darkness. I don't know, worth a shot though. It sounds like these guys were inspired by this 2018 story about Chinese scientists planning on launching an artificial moon to illuminate the night sky. I don't think they ever did it, probably because the whole plan, did sound a little unhinged, but at least they're not pulling an Elon Musk, who tweeted his vision for a large solar-powered AI satellite constellation to intercept and control how much solar energy makes it to the Earth. This time, reflecting sunlight makes me think we need to reflect on how our most powerful people are following in the footsteps of the Simpsons villainist Mr. Burns. He wanted to block out the sun too. And look what happened to him. Shot by a baby. And that's all for today, folks. Looks like our perpetual motion machine finally ran out of beer. If you like that ride, though, you should really be looking forward to Wednesday, where we'll have even more tech news. I won't even get into it. Okay?
Não sei se faltou, se foi um a mais, mas perdi na conta e fiz uma a mais.
Starter Pokemon are some of the most beloved and memorable in the entire series. I mean, every game literally starts with you picking one to be your partner.
In recent months, Iran's president Masoud Pezeshkian has been talking about moving Iran's capital from Tehran in the north, a sprawling megacity of around 10 million people, to Makran, an undeveloped semi-desert region on Iran's southern coast on the Gulf of Oman. This is largely because of Iran's worsening water crisis, caused by 5 years of drought and resource over-extraction, but also because of the Makran region's untapped economic potential and its proximity to trade routes in the Arabian Sea. So in this video, we'll explain Iran's water crisis, the proposal to move Iran's capital to its southern coast, and whether it could actually happen. If this kind of topic is interesting to you, then you'd enjoy the next issue of our magazine, Too Long, where we're talking about the new Middle East. In this issue, we'll be running through each of the countries in the region and talking about their future, before reflecting on how recent events have reshaped the Middle East forever. Pre-order your copy or subscribe by clicking the link in the description. First, let's start with some important background. The idea of moving Iran's capital has been floated numerous times since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, but has been shelved repeatedly due to financial and logistical hurdles. However, throughout 2025, Iran's new reformist president, Masoud Pezeshkian, has revived the idea, and in October, he said that he raised the issue last year with Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, arguing that Iran's escalating resource crisis is now so severe that there's no other option. For context, for at least 5 years now, Iran has been struggling with drought, which experts say has been worsened by climate change. Last year, Iran experienced just 140 millimeters of rainfall, 50 to 60% less than usual, with some recent estimates putting 2025 rainfall at just under 100 millimeters. And this has been exacerbated by chronic mismanagement of Iran's limited water supplies by the Iranian government, who haven't done enough to improve agricultural productivity, which means Iranian farmers use more water than the country can afford, and have essentially drained the country's groundwater resources, particularly in Isfahan and the Gavkuni wetland. Take a look at these NASA satellite images, for instance, showing the complete evaporation of Iran's Lake Urmia between 2020 and 2023. Iran's water crisis is also one of the main reasons for rising Afghanistan-Iran tensions. Since returning to power in 2021, the Afghan Taliban has increased its control over waterways between the two countries, exacerbating water scarcity in Iran's border regions and inviting angry statements from Iranian officials as well as the occasional border skirmish. Anyway, Iran's water shortages have affected the entire country, but have had an especially acute impact on the capital of Tehran, both because it's a relatively arid area and because the city has massively grown in size over time. In 1980, Tehran had a population of about 5 million. Today, that figure has doubled to about 10 million. For context, it took London, which has roughly the same population as Tehran and far better infrastructure, about 3 times as long to double in size. Dams around the capital are now at their lowest level in at least 70 years, and on Sunday, Iranian state media announced that the largest nearby dam had just 2 weeks of water left, warning that the taps could run dry unless there was a sudden bout of rainfall. Tehran has also been particularly affected by a phenomenon caused by groundwater over-extraction, called land subsidence, the gradual sinking of the Earth's surface due to the loss of support beneath the ground. This can cause all sorts of infrastructure problems, including the eventual collapse of roads and
Ele não tá fudido, ó, tá afundando o bagulho. Eu fiz o do chão agora, fiz o do braço. Fiz o do braço, não foi que eu achei alto. 6 mais 6, 12, é pra ter 12 ainda, porque tem 16. Eu fiz do chão, fiz do braço, velho. Pai é burro. Eu fiz o do chão que eu contei 11. 2 é do braço, né? Mas é isso aí.
Metro stations in Isfahan, 328 mosques, 37 libraries, 3 main hospitals, and 258 schools are located in areas of high subsidence. While in a single week, the city saw 3 subsidence incidents that caused sinkholes as wide as 15 meters to appear in public pathways. Anyway, this is why last month, Iranian President Putin pitched the idea of moving Iran's capital somewhere further south, proposing the remote southern coastal strip of Makran on the Gulf of Oman. Arguing that Tehran had been, quote, expanded and overloaded, Pezeshkian said that moving Iran's capital was no longer an option but a mandate. Now, this might sound somewhat far-fetched, but the crisis is real, and Pezeshkian seems fairly intent on making it happen, given how frequently he's mentioned it in the past year. Now, the first argument for moving the capital to Makran is its potential for development. The area is sparsely populated, but possesses significant untapped economic and geographic resources, such as the availability of water supplies in the south. While Makran is one of Iran's least developed regions, it offers potential for development in areas like ports, trade corridors, fisheries, and even tourism. This economic development argument has tacitly been endorsed by Iran's foreign minister, who said in a speech early this year, the lost paradise of Makran must be transformed into the future economic hub of Iran and the region. The second reason, though, is its proximity to trade routes in the Arabian Sea. Because it sits on the Gulf of Oman, building a capital in Makran would offer Iran direct access to open sea routes that bypass the narrow and geopolitically sensitive Strait of Hormuz, allowing Iran to strengthen its maritime trade, expand its port infrastructure, particularly around Cherbourg, Iran's only port, and attract investment in logistics, energy, and shipbuilding. However, there are several reasons why moving the capital to Makran might not work. The first is opposition from Iranians, who view Tehran's cultural value as an important region for its capital city status. Moreover, Tehran is arguably safer in emergency and war situations than Makran, which is more vulnerable due to its exposed coastal location, something Iranians experienced during the Iran-Iraq War, when coastal and southern regions, which hosted Iran's oil tankers, ports, and shipping facilities, became primary targets for Iraqi air and naval attacks. Another obstacle is simply the cost. Other countries that have moved their capitals in recent decades, including Indonesia, Brazil, and Nigeria, have faced huge costs and logistical challenges, including the relocation of government ministries and the need to develop housing, transport networks, and public services from scratch. Moreover, in the case of Iran specifically, the economy is already stretched by sanctions and limited foreign investment. This means that financing a new capital, while also maintaining essential services around Tehran, would likely stretch state resources to breaking. Finally, it's also unclear whether Macron would be significantly more insulated from the effects of climate change than Tehran is. Macron is a semi-desert region, which already suffers from a lack of water, which, combined with rising temperatures and falling rainfall, have created fragile environmental conditions that could limit the potential for development. In this regard, building a new megacity in Makram might not be a guaranteed solution to Iran's problems, although Pezeshkian certainly seems keen on the idea. In fact, it's this kind of thing that we're discussing in the next issue of our magazine, Too Long, what we're calling the New Middle East.
Cara, mete o louco e faz bagulho. Foda-se, esse cara não tem ideia do que tá fazendo, mas o cara tá fazendo algo.
Truly outlining how we see this region re-emerging. It's not just that though, there have also been a lot of major elections this year. So in this issue, we have a whole section talking about all the major elections that have taken place this year, and how global politics has changed. China's continued dominance, politics in the UK, and how politicians have hijacked social media. This latest issue is now available for pre-order.
Tem uma fadiga, uma coisa, mortidão no corpo.
Not only this copy, but also every future copy as long as you're subscribed. Plus, this time round, we're also offering bundles with our book Assembly Required and our 2026 calendar. For instance, you can subscribe to Too Long and get a copy of the book for just
partner. To make sure these Pokemon feel special, they're across the board pretty good. Some are, perhaps, a little bit too good. And when they aren't doing so well, Game Freak tends to give them special treatment, with Mega Evolution, Gigantamax forms, and regional forms. But not all starter Pokemon have been treated this way. Some are out here begging for scraps, while Charizard stuffs itself silly. And that got me thinking, what is the worst starter Pokemon of all time? Before anybody tries to beat me up in an alley for saying that their favorite starter Pokemon sucks, keep in mind that I'm talking strictly about competitive Pokemon here. I love a lot of the Pokemon on this list, but that doesn't stop them from being dog water competitively, okay? Nobody's gonna get mad at me, right? Okay. First on our list is Sceptile. I can already hear the comments yelling at me. Listen, it's not as bad as you think. I'm starting from least bad and moving up. I've selected 5 starter Pokemon that are really bad but not quite the worst, and then I'll share the top 3 worst starter Pokemon of all time. Sceptile is on here because, well, it just isn't very good. As a pure grass type Pokemon, it has a number of weaknesses, and there's a bunch of types that resist it. Sceptile's main selling point is its speed. It's faster than most Pokemon. The problem is, it doesn't really have a way to make use of this. Sceptile has the same attack stat as Quaxwell, Marshtomp, and Thwackey. You know, middle stage starter Pokemon. To compensate, it also has less special attack than Haunter. Not Gengar, Haunter. And unlike many grass-type Pokemon, it doesn't have the supporting moveset to really mess with your opponent's strategy. It doesn't get Spore or Sleep Powder, either of which would actually make it really threatening. On top of all that, Sceptile is frail. If it gets hit with any super effective move, it'll do a Grovyle impression from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and vanish. All starter Pokemon of a type have the same ability. Overgrow for grass, Blaze for fire, and Torrent for water. Their hidden abilities, though, can vary, and these can have a pretty big impact. In Sceptile's case, its hidden ability is some kind of sick joke. It's Unburden, which doubles its speed stat once Sceptile has consumed whatever item it's holding. While for some Pokemon, doubling their speed is a big deal, speed was the only stat Sceptile didn't have to worry about. Thanks, Game Freak. Now, Sceptile has gotten buffed over the years. Most recently, it was given the move Shed Tail that, despite being a great move, did nothing to improve Sceptile's viability. The more meaningful buff was the introduction of Mega Sceptile. Now a grass and dragon type, Mega Sceptile was even faster, got a lot more special attack, and a massive 10 points to its defense, the only increase to its bulk. On the plus side, it did get the ability Lightning Rod, which actually is a big upgrade. Mega
Lightning
Sceptile is
Rod?
by far the best Sceptile has ever been, which is still, let me check, not very good. While you could do some cheeky shenanigans with like Choice Scarf Discharge to make it stronger, it was just so frail that using it was a liability. Grass and Dragon both being weak to ice meant even weak moves like Icy Wind were a huge threat. And the addition of two weaknesses in Dragon and Fairy didn't make things any easier. Since you could only Mega Evolve one Pokemon per battle, it isn't hard to see why Mega Sceptile wasn't worth using. Speaking of not worth using, let's talk about one of the most hated starter Pokemon of all time, Emboar. As the third firefighting starter in a row, Emboar received a lot of negativity when it released, and its public image did not improve once players started using it. While Infernape and Blaziken look cool and are fast and strong, capable of using their good offensive typing to overwhelm opponents, Emboar is slow and looks, well, goofy. Now the good thing about being slower is that typically, Pokemon that are not so fast tend to be much bulkier to compensate. Emboar seems to have missed the memo on this one. While it does have a lot of HP, its defense and special defense stats are like seeing a band in concert that isn't very good live. They leave a lot to be desired. Emboar is strong, and its hidden ability can make it even stronger. Reckless powers up all moves that have recoil, like Flare Blitz and Wild Charge. While the damage boost is nice, more damage means more recoil damage, making it even harder to keep Emboar alive. Basically, if you want to use Emboar, you need to use the move Trick Room, which lets slow Pokemon move before fast ones. But Emboar actually isn't even slow enough to really take advantage of Trick Room. It's got this awful speed stat where it's slower than anything even average speed, but faster than the slow Pokemon that tend to thrive in Trick Room like Amoonguss. Despite all of Emboar's shortcomings, there is one player who believed in it more than any other. This player used Emboar to win their first event, a regional back in 2011, and then brought Emboar to the World Championships, finishing 6th. Who was this player? Well, by the way, if you've made it this far into the video, just a little reminder to check and see if you're subscribed. I work really hard on every video I put out, and many videos actually have over 100 hours of work total put into them across me and my team. So if you want to support the channel or see more of my stuff, I'd really appreciate it. If you did just subscribe, the good thing is that you're definitely not going to regret it as I talk about the next Pokemon on our list, Feraligatr. Okay, I do feel like people are going to be mad at me about this one too, but I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear, I'm here to tell you the truth. Feraligatr, more like Garbaligator. Feraligatr is a pure water-type Pokemon. Wow, how original. Even though it's not as slow as Emboar, I mean, it's still not very fast. And while its bulk is, well, not great, but at least better than the Pokemon we've talked about thus far, it's somehow super weak. It's a gator, but they didn't give it any attack. Why? The issue with Feraligatr, and this is going to be true with a lot of Pokemon on our list, is that there's nothing that really makes it unique. For example, some of you may know that Feraligatr gets Dragon Dance, but if you want a water-type Dragon Dance Pokemon, you're better off using Gyarados. If you want to forgo setup and instead run an offensive item with Feraligatr, like, I don't know, Choice Band, you'd probably rather use Azumarill. If you want a bulky water type, well, there are a ton of better options like Milotic or Gastrodon.
Milotic tá humilhando demais, hein, pai?
There's really nothing that makes Feraligatr better than its peers. I guess the one thing worth mentioning is that it does get the ability Sheer Force, which in my opinion is one of the weirdest abilities in the game. Sheer Force says, hey, if this Pokemon uses a move that has some sort of secondary effect that could activate, forget about that secondary effect and take a damage boost instead. The reason I say it's weird is that, for whatever reason, it works with Life Orb. Life Orb is an item that gives all the user's moves a 30% damage increase in exchange for 10% of their max health every time they hit something. And for whatever reason, this 10% recoil effect is counted as a
Melhor que os
secondary
prévios,
effect
né?
of Sheer Force, meaning you keep the damage boost
Não,
from
Sheer
Life
Force.
Orb without losing any
O resto
health.
é bosta.
While this is a really great combination for Sheer Force users generally, it isn't enough to save our strong-jawed friend. Feraligatr just isn't fast or strong enough to make use of this powerful interaction, and that's probably the reason its results page looks like this. This is actually an identical results page to our next Pokemon, Torterra.
Torterra
is a
lixo,
grass and
Torterra
ground
é.
type Pokemon that unfortunately is by far the weakest of its generation. While Infernape is fast and strong, and Empoleon has a great ability and cool typing, Torterra got stuck with a quadruple weakness to Ice and a great role in Detective Pikachu. Torterra is the first Pokemon on our list to actually have respectable bulk. While it isn't absurd, it is tanky enough that it should be somewhat difficult to
Tô usando
get rid of
plástico
it if
com
you
essa
don't have the
bosta.
right move. Its attack isn't good per se,
O pinguim não
but
tá aí,
it's
velho?
usable,
E
especially
Megane?
for
Deve tá, tem que estar. Chikorita é a famosa bosta.
not really good use ends.
Porque é no jogo, né? Competitivo eu não sei. Se é um Spore ou uma coisa.
Would imply you'd prefer to use it in Trick Room. But because it isn't strong enough, you'd never use it over an actual Trick Room attacker that can, do damage. With its quadruple weakness to ice and weaknesses to fire and flying, though, using it outside of Trick Room isn't much easier. In Scarlet and Violet, Torterra was given Shell Smash, a powerful move that doubles the user's speed, attack, and special attack stats. And there was talk about whether this would finally allow Torterra to, well, maybe not dominate, but at least do something. It would not. Unfortunately, Torterra is so slow that even doubling its speed doesn't allow it to outrun many of the faster threats in the format. Not to mention, it is so vulnerable on the turn you use Shell Smash, since the move also lowers your defenses. So, despite this buff and gaining access to the powerful new move, Headlong Rush, Torterra still hasn't been able to do anything.
Gente, muito menos que antes, né? Vai tá bom demais hoje.
In 2015, where Throttle, Torterra's pre-evolution, was a major threat. It was used as an endgame demon, using Leech Seed and Synthesis to keep itself alive as it gradually
Com a
whittled
Violite?
teams out of HP. As a pure grass type, it doesn't have that quadruple ice weakness. And it actually
Hoje foi isso aí, sofrido.
Eviolite item,
E agora eu vou fazer um unboxing.
fully evolved. It didn't take off.
Eu uso a Violite, eu previ. Pai muito experiente. Quando o cara fala do Pokémon, eu já consigo prever. O cara vai falar mal do bicho. Eu fiz o de hoje aí. E eu vou fazer um unboxing aqui agora. Eu vou parar esse vídeo e vai. Pode pesquisar aí no canal, vai ter o piloadado já, os dois juntos. Unboxing é nova proteína. Chegou minha proteína. É da NutraGold, lá que eu usava antes. Eu tenho um unboxing da NutraGold de chocolate testando. E agora eu vou testar a de limão. Valeu. Me veja lá no próximo unboxing. E eu tenho um K de seguidor, acabei de ver. Primeiro vídeo que eu tô fazendo, que eu vi que eu tenho um K. Vou fazer um especial de um K amanhã, se eu tiver alguma imaginação.